Reading together through the Gospel of Matthew. The place we've got up to, the end of chapter 3, has a very special significance for us this morning. It's almost like we planned it this way. If you have a Bible with you, would you turn to Matthew chapter 3? Matthew chapter 3. If you'd like to grab one of the church Bibles, one of the Bibles on the end of the pews, you're welcome to. You can find our reading this morning on page 967. So we're going to read from Matthew chapter 3, 13 to 17. We're looking this morning at Jesus' baptism, at Jesus' own baptism. It's been such a joy celebrating with Claire and Moira and Debbie and Heather. And as we heard in the liturgy itself, Jesus himself was baptized. And we're going to look at one of the accounts of Jesus' own baptism this morning. So let's read together. Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. But John tried to deter him, saying, "I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me?" Jesus replied, "Let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness." Then John consented. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." It is so good to be together this morning. I don't know how far you've had to come to be with us today. Some of us, I know, have traveled to be part of the day. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And I know Heather and Debbie and Claire and Moira appreciate it so much too, to have so many family and friends here on their special day. Each of them has been on a journey of a different kind to get here today. And wasn't it lovely to hear their stories, their personal stories of their journeys to faith in Jesus Christ, why they're being baptized today. Some of them many years in the making, others of them more recent. All of our journeys to baptism are precious, however long they took. Jesus' journey to his baptism was longer than we might realize. Matthew tells us in our reading, verse 13, that he came from Galilee to be baptized by John in the river Jordan. Now, Jesus' hometown was a place called Nazareth, and that's about 80 miles away from where John was baptizing. It was 4 or 5 days' journey to get there on foot. So word had obviously spread a long way about what it was John was doing. And it seems that when Jesus heard what John was doing, he knew that he too had to make that journey, more than a week's round trip, to do what he felt he had to do before God. Did he have to do it? There's a question. John obviously didn't think so. Verse 14, John tried to deter him. He tried to put him off. He knew something was different about Jesus, such that he thought he didn't need to be baptized. In fact, he thought that Jesus was the one who should be baptizing him. John somehow knew what we now know, that Jesus hadn't done anything that required what John was offering, which was a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. In other words, a baptism in response to a person's knowledge that they had sinned, they'd messed up, they'd made mistakes in their lives, they'd offended God, and they needed his forgiveness. And so they were coming to the Jordan, they were streaming to the Jordan to have that sin symbolically washed away and be made right with God again. Well, John saw that Jesus had no need to have his sin washed away. He never had that need to be made right with God because his life up to that point and beyond that moment was totally sinless. And John is taken aback to be asked by Jesus to baptize him. In fact, standing before Jesus, he feels the weight of his own sin, his own unworthiness, unrighteousness before God. He realizes that he is the one who needs to be washed clean, not Jesus. I need to be baptized, he said, and yet you come to me. But Jesus insists. He says, let it be so now. He's not disagreeing with John. He's saying, please do it anyway. Because there's a greater concern here. Verse 15 says, Jesus said, it is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. If you've been with us these last few weeks as we've been journeying through Matthew so far, you know how important that little word fulfill is to Matthew. Matthew saw who Jesus was. He was the one everyone had been waiting for. He was the one who fulfilled God's plan, the one who all the prophecies in the Old Testament were about. He was the one that all of God's people had been waiting for, a good king, a just ruler, someone who would save God's people from the mess that they were in. And we are in a mess, aren't we? Anybody want to disagree with me on that this morning? I think I hear some version of the phrase broken Britain, or Britain is broken every single day on the news at the moment. It is. And I'm not making a political statement here. Our nation is broken because the world is broken. We are broken. You and I are broken. We're broken because of the sin that's inside us all. Someone I know said to me yesterday, I think we are all full of far more horrible darkness than we like to look at. And God sent Jesus to fix what was broken. The reason Jesus came was to fix what was and is broken. And in order to fix what was broken in us, Jesus had to become one of us. Jesus was God. He was fully God, but he had to become fully one of us. And he'd already done that in many ways, actually, on his journey to his baptism. He was conceived in the womb of an ordinary woman. He was born to quite ordinary parents. He was raised in a completely ordinary family and community. He went to school, he learned a trade, he made a living. In his life, he would have celebrated, he would have laughed, he would have kicked back with friends at the end of the day. All of this for about 30 years, just like us. And he'd have had hard times too, just like us. Jesus wasn't born into a wealthy family, so he'd have known hardships of various kinds, just like us. He'd have lost people who were dear to him. He'd have known grief, just like us. He'd have felt like an outsider at times, a stranger. He'd have been misunderstood at times, just like us. I reckon he knew well what it was like to be us. He could identify with us in every way, the good things about life and the hard things about life. So did Jesus need to be baptized? No, and yes. He never sinned. But in order to fully identify with those of us who have, he chose to be baptized. Verse 15, so John consented. And just like our ladies this morning, Jesus waded into the waters of the Jordan. He took off his outer garments and waded into the water. And yes, if you heard a resonance there with Jesus' washing his disciples' feet, that was intentional. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many. Matthew will go on to say. Matthew knows exactly what's going on here. And this moment is so significant because this is the beginning of Jesus' life of service. All the way to the cross. All the way to the end of his earthly life and into his resurrection life. And what happens in this moment in the water, this moment of Jesus' baptism, I believe sets him up for that life. A life of obedience, a life of self-denial and sacrifice, a life of loving others at a cost for their salvation and God's greater glory. And Claire, Moira, Heather, Debbie, all Christian brothers and sisters here this morning, if we pay close attention to what's happening in this moment, remembering our own baptisms, I believe they will do the same for us. Here's the thing. We go through the same waters Jesus did because we need the same experience Jesus had. Let's look at these last two verses again, verses 16 and 17, and remind ourselves what happened in this central event in Jesus' life. As soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending on him like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." The three most powerful words in the English language are, "I love you." The most powerful sight any of us can see in our lives is the face of someone who loves us looking at us. The most powerful touch any of us can feel is the touch of one who loves us. And Jesus, in this moment, coming up out of the baptismal waters, receives all three at once. The Father opens the heavens like a proud dad, throwing open the curtains of his son's room and reaching down into his cot and grabbing him and hugging him. Or seeing his son from a far distance, throwing open the door of the house and running to meet him, his gaze transfixed on his son. "Come here. Let me look at you." He stops everything. He breaks the rules of nature to have a look at his son. Jesus knew in that moment the loving gaze of his Father. The Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, our God is three in one. He can't resist. He has to get in on the act as well. So he comes down too in the form of a bird. And what kind of a bird? A dove. Dove that we know means peace. Dove that we remember from the story of Noah. The dove was the one who proved that the flood waters were receding, and there was hope on the horizon. The Spirit comes down physically and alights on Jesus. It settles on him. It physically touches him. So in that moment, Jesus knows the touch of love too. And then the Father speaks. We all know, don't we, the power of the voice of someone we love, especially after a long period where you haven't heard it. Jesus hadn't heard this voice for 30 long years. He heard it every day in heaven. How must it have sounded to him in that moment? And it's not just the sound of his Father's voice he hears, it's the words the Father says to him. "This is my Son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased." Everybody in this room, everybody on the face of the planet, every human being ever made was made to hear those words spoken over them. We all need to hear those words spoken over us, even those of us who don't think we need to hear those words, or who struggle to hear them, or would run a mile rather than have to hear them. We all need to hear those words spoken over us. St. Augustine, our patron saint here, said famously, "You have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." Or put it another way, Our hearts are insecure until they find a love strong enough to secure them. A look, a touch, words that tell us we belong to someone, we are loved by someone, that we bring delight to someone. I heard something so poignant this week. Sarah and I finally caught up with Adolescence, the Netflix TV show. I wonder if you've seen it. That is a remarkable piece of TV. You have to have Netflix to watch it. It's not an easy watch, but it is hugely powerful. Episode 3, Jamie, the 13-year-old main character, vulnerable kid, looks up at one point and says, "Do you like me?" And when you look in his eyes, you know the question is much deeper than that. He's a broken young man. He's been cut off from his family. He's accused of having done something terrible. He is asking the same question we're all asking all of the time. Am I loved? Am I loved? It's the question that's behind so many of our other questions. Am I enough? Do I have enough? Am I good enough? And until we get an answer to the deeper question, am I loved? We will keep on asking all those other questions. Our hearts will always be insecure until we meet a love strong enough to secure them. Until we hear the voice of the Father saying to us, you are my child. You are the one I love. With you, I am well pleased. Those other voices will be the only ones we can hear until we hear that voice. The wonderful Christian author and pastor Henry Nouwen wrote about the lies that we are bound to believe about ourselves until and unless we believe the truth about who we really are, who God says we are. We'll believe these other lies which keep us anxious and insecure and never feeling enough. Number 1, I am what I have. I am what I have. Number 2, I am what I do. Number 3, I am what other people think of me and say about me. Number 4, I'm nothing more than my worst moment. Number 5, I'm nothing more than my best moment. Number 6, I am what I feel. Jesus came to call us into a relationship with the Father who gives us our true identity, the only one authorized to tell us who we really are because he made us. He gives us our identity as a gift, something we receive, not something we have to work up or work for or work out. And it starts with the God of heaven saying to us, I love you. You're mine. I'm so happy with you. I believe, and I'll bet my life on this, that every human being on the face of this planet is looking for exactly what the God of heaven, the Father of Jesus Christ, wants to give them. His belonging, his love, his approval. And many, many people have rejected God because they haven't really heard about this God. They've heard about a different God, the God that Moira was talking about. The harsh, judgmental, condemning, cold, uncaring, distant God. They don't want to have anything to do with that kind of God, and nor do I. I don't believe in that kind of God. I believe in this kind of God. The kind of God who says, I love you. You're mine. I'm so happy with you. The kind of God who sent his son Jesus to show us what he's like. The man standing in the water. The one who John at first refused to baptize because he was so blazingly holy, so completely pure. He has the right to call us to our knees in repentance and the authority to forgive us when we do. He's the one who came down to the Jordan from Galilee to be baptized when he didn't need to be, in order to identify fully with us, to show us that he completely gets it, he completely understands us, he completely enters into our humanity, so that when the time comes on the cross, he can exchange our unrighteousness for his righteousness. He's the one who will go on from this moment in the water to live a life of sacrifice and self-denial and self-giving, self-emptying, serving and healing until he is crucified and then raised gloriously from the dead on the third day. The one who right now is about the business of setting right all that is wrong with the world. The one who right now is about the business of fixing what is broken in us and in this world. The one who is calling men and women like you to join him in that mission. Join his new community, his family, the church. That's the God I believe in. That's the one I trust in. My heart this morning is that all of us here, including myself, come to a deeper consciousness of the love that the Father has for us, the depth of his heart for us, the desire in him that we would know him, belong to him, know we are loved by him and are called according to his purposes. This is what Jesus came to give us: approval, delight, the joy of being a child of God. Lord, help us to see. Help our hearts to know. Both those of us who have walked with you for a long time and those of us who have yet to see you for who you really are, to know the depth of your love for us. And maybe for some today who have yet to trust in Jesus, would you so warm their hearts? Those who have only ever heard about a harsh, judgmental, angry, condemning God, would you help them to see the possibility? Would you tear open the heavens this morning and pour light in? Let's stand, shall we?